But it's known that that reply is now on its way by specially chartered aeroplane and is expected to be in Berlin later this evening and handed to the German Chancellor there. Ministers hurried back to their desks after a 1.5-hour cabinet meeting this morning, watched by dozens of photographers and by increasingly worried crowds in Downing Street. But since the cabinet meeting was fairly short, the speculation is that the government has yet again emphasized to Germany that we cannot budge in our defense of Polish freedom. Meanwhile, the King has made his obvious concern at the situation felt by visiting crucial Whitehall ministries today. With the Duke of Gloucester, he went to the War Office and was shown the bomb-proof and fireproof rooms which have been built there as the nation's defense headquarters. The King and the Duke then went immediately for a further visit to the Air Ministry. And this evening, Mr. Chamberlain went to Buckingham Palace for an hour-and-a-half meeting with the King. Britain's concern that America should understand our resistance to German demands on Poland was clearly illustrated today when, among the many foreign diplomats called to Whitehall, only the American ambassador, Mr. Joseph Kennedy, was seen by the Prime Minister himself at number 10. But reassuring news from Mr. Ernest Bevin, the Secretary of the Transport and General Workers Union, just back from an American visit, that the American people are strongly behind Britain's cause.
Tonight, all the signs from Berlin are that Hitler and his government are as determined as ever to press ahead with their assault on Poland. It's being said in Berlin that the negotiations with Britain are making no progress. Our correspondent there, Charles Wheeler, now reports.
The British ambassador, Sir Neville Henderson, is not expected to deliver Britain's latest note to Hitler until later tonight. But I understand that an interim message handed to the German Foreign Ministry earlier today rejects as unreasonable Hitler's demand that a fully empowered Polish negotiator come at once to Berlin. Instead, Britain suggests that Germany follow normal procedure by transmitting its proposals to Warsaw through the Polish ambassador in Berlin. Sources close to Field Marshal Goering are telling correspondents here that Britain's role must be to press Poland to accept Germany's just and therefore not negotiable demands. They have been hinting that the Field Marshal himself is about to be given important new military responsibilities as chief of a Reich Defense Council with powers of decree to put the German economy on a war footing. At the British Embassy in the Wilhelmstrasse, the halls are full of packed trunks and suitcases. It's described as no more than a precaution, but it adds to the general impression here that the time for diplomatic exchanges is running out.
In Poland, the country which is closest to war, preparations for conflict are now nearly complete. The Polish government has called up all men under the age of 40 and made a declaration that in the event of war, every man, regardless of age, and every woman will be soldiers. Our Warsaw correspondent, Tim Sebastian, reports.
Call-up posters have been appearing in Warsaw and all major cities today as Poland stepped closer to war. One sign read simply, "To arms, united, we will defeat the enemy." Earlier, civil defense workers gathered in the capital. By the weekend, it's expected more than 2.5 million Poles will be under arms. The government explanation, there's now no doubt that Poland is in grave danger. In an official communique tonight, Warsaw accused Germany of a policy of aggression and cited systematic provocations, frontier incidents, and a rapid build-up of forces along the border. So far, it said all attempts at conciliation have found no echo with the German government. For the moment here, there's no full mobilization, but that can't be far away. Already, the trained reservists are being called up as the country's mechanized units prepared to defend the most vulnerable borders to the south and west. Events in Danzig have hastened the crisis. By all accounts, the free city is no longer free to Poles. Polish rights are being constantly violated amid reports that the Gestapo have arrested customs officials and brought railway traffic to a standstill. Further signs of the worsening situation came in a warning to shipping in the Baltic. Mines are reported to have been laid off the Polish coast. This follows the arrest of all foreign ships in the port yesterday, their cargo seized by the Nazis. In Warsaw tonight, there are indications that a complete blackout will be ordered to test the readiness of the people for aerial attack. Everything, it seems, has begun, bar the war itself.
Tim Sebastian from Poland. As the evidence that Berlin will not back down grows, so Britain and France have been intensifying their preparations for war. Today, the evacuation of Paris began.
More than 16,000 children were evacuated from Paris today. Their parents took them to school at 8 o'clock this morning, but instead of satchels and rulers, they carried a small bag of personal belongings, one blanket, and food for 2 days. And all children between the ages of 2 and 10 were fitted with gas masks. The children left Paris in 27 special trains, and a further 30,000 boys and girls are expected to have left the French capital by noon tomorrow. Britain has plans to evacuate 3 million from its towns and cities and to provide 38 million gas masks for the general population. The 1925 Geneva Protocol, in theory, bans the use of chemical weapons, but it doesn't prohibit armies having stockpiles. So concerned is the Foreign Office, Sir Neville Henderson, the British ambassador to Berlin, has instructions to seek an assurance from Germany that they would not use such weapons during any conflict. In the centre of Paris, the stations were crowded with reservists and goodbyes. Radio stations have been placed under military authority, and today a single national news bulletin was transmitted throughout France. And it's expected that by tomorrow, legislation will be ready to put the entire rail network under military command within 48 hours.
Here at home, the country is being made ready for the blackout. The work to dim the country's lights and cope with the problems it could cause has been one aspect of the war preparation which has been taking place the length and breadth of Britain today. Our Home Affairs correspondent David Sells reports.
White paint is drenching the land, a nighttime guide for when the streetlights are extinguished. Council workmen were today patterning footpaths and curbs in black and white as a help to both pedestrians and drivers. Others painted in dotted lines down road centres, a lifeline for motorists should the blackout be total. Trees, too, are receiving a lick of whitewash as an additional help for the driver. Householders are being advised to fit thick curtains or blinds as a blackout precaution. Car headlamps also should be masked to avoid lighting the way for raiding aircraft. Air raids and gas attacks are the government's greatest fear should there be war. And the government today issued this film showing what war in the air might mean.
When you hear these warning sirens, take cover at once. The warning may also be given by short blasts on police whistles. This hand rattle means gas. Put on your gas mask and keep it on. Do not be alarmed by noise in an air raid. Much of it will be the noise of our own guns dealing with the raiders. Now, this siren means that the raiders have passed. If there has been gas, wait until you hear this bell. It will tell you when there is no longer any danger from gas. Only then is it safe to leave your shelter and remove your gas mask. No one in this country of ours wants war. But if war should come, don't be alarmed. Keep a good heart.
The government has also issued advice on what to do if you find yourself in a train during an air raid. Firstly, do not try to leave the train unless you're told to do so. Pull the blinds down, they'll protect you from flying glass. And if there's room, lie on the floor. Some other news now. Sir Philip Game, the Commissioner of Metropolitan Police, has warned that IRA agents are being sent to Great Britain. He's appealed to hotel and boarding house keepers to report suspicious guests to the police. At Dartmoor, prison doctors are trying to save the life of an IRA prisoner. He was one of 12 IRA men severely beaten up by other inmates yesterday after an Irish prisoner had boasted that the Coventry bombing was a good job. The crisis has doubled the normal number of weddings at Gretna Green. A Register Office official said he'd been called upon to conduct a number of ceremonies during the night. Some were of army officers who swore the registrar to secrecy. And as the hot, sunny weather continued for the second week in a row, most of our holiday resorts are still crowded. The average temperature this month has been higher than usual for August, at more than 64 degrees. After the dull and wet July, people are taking full advantage of it. The mood of the British people was perhaps summed up best in the notice on this car in Chatham, Kent. Half a mo Hitler, it says, let's have our holidays first. America has beaten Great Britain in the Whiteman Cup for the 9th time in succession. In the sunshine of Forest Hills, Britain's Kay Stammers once more faced the American Alice Marble, who beat her to the Wimbledon title 2 months ago. Miss Stammers, a left-hander, raised Britain's hopes when she took the first set 6-3. But she dropped the second set 3-6 as Marble, a Californian, put her game into devastating effect. Miss Marble's new serve and volley technique proved too much for the girl from St. Albans. That was it, 3-6, 6-3, 6-4. The cup was once more America's, and so were some winning words from its donor, Hazel Whiteman.
I'm fairly happy, girls. You all played beautifully, and I'm very proud of each one of you. Thank you very much.
The city continues to take a less urgent view of the international situation. The pound closed 1.5 cents up at $4.39.5. The price of gold also rose 1 6 an ounce to 158 6. And that was the news tonight, Wednesday, the 30th of August, 1939. A new message has gone from Britain to Berlin, but Berlin looks increasingly unlikely to change its position. From the BBC in London, good night.
I'm up 0.5.